Here are 4 simple ways to increase your Social Security benefit.
And stick around to the end, where we're going to go over our controversial take on what might be the best age to take Social Security and a little bit of the reasoning why.
Hi, my name's Kerry Green. I'm the co-founder and financial planner at Green Era Financial.
Hi, my name is JJ Widmeyer. I'm the other co-founder, chief investment officer, as well as financial planner for Green Era Financial.
Before we get into the ways to increase your Social Security benefit, it's important you understand the basics of how Social Security works. So we're going to cover a couple of those things that we think it's key for you to understand. And the first one of those is that your Social Security benefit is based off of the highest 35 years of employment income that you've received in your lifetime.
Also, when you think about those 35 years, that's a lot of time. Maybe you didn't work 35 years. So any of the years that you didn't work are counted as a zero. But to collect Social Security, you just need to have worked at least 10 years. Those are usually broken up into quarters or 3-month increments. So it doesn't matter kind of where they are, as long as you've got 10 years of working history, you're going to be able to get a Social Security benefit.
Oh, that's interesting. And so does that include like self-employment income, or is that just like W-2 income from working at a job that pays a salary or pays an hourly wage?
That's a really good question. When you're thinking about it, it really comes down to how you're paying your taxes, right?
Okay.
So if you're self-employed and you're paying state, federal, and FICA taxes, that FICA tax is what is the contribution to your Social Security. So as long as you have 10 years of that, then you're definitely qualified to receive your Social Security benefit.
Got it. And so the way that FICA tax works is approximately 6.2% of your income goes towards your Social Security benefit. And one of the cool things about that is your employer, right, the company you work for, matches that 6.2%. So it's kind of like a 401k in that regard, where you get a match from your employer that goes towards your Social Security benefits, which is cool. So anytime you get a paycheck, if you see on there FICA tax, just know that there's a portion, 6.2% of your income goes towards Social Security, and then there's like 1.45 or something like that percent that goes towards Medicare costs. But that FICA tax means you're paying into the Social Security program, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about like those 35 years, what's really interesting, and a lot of the times people kind of get a little bit confused about this, and I'm thinking that you could probably straighten this out, is that right now, those 35 years, the highest income years, your first $160,000, approximately, there's going to be that 6.2 of that, which goes into Social Security, right? Your employer is going to match it. But what about if 20 years from now, you were only earning $57,000? Would Social Security, your income from Social Security, get penalized for that, Kerry?
Oh yeah, it brings up a really good point. So one of the other very key things to understand about Social Security is you own only the first, for 2023, only the first $160,200 that you earn do you pay the Social Security benefit on, and is calculated as part of your Social Security program, right? So if you earn more than $160,200 in taxable income from your employment, then that excess money that you earn is not counted or factored into your Social Security benefit. But if you remember correctly, it's 35 years of your highest income earning years, right? So maybe 30 years ago, you were only earning what you said, like $57,000.
Yeah.
Well, now that's going to kind of throw things off, right? Because that's way less than 160,000. But not quite. The way it works is every year, the Social Security Administration updates that maximum amount, and they adjust it for inflation. So the cap on your earnings for Social Security 30 years ago in 1993 was like 57,000 and change. So if you earned that then, it's like the same thing as earning 160,200 this year. So that's one of the key things to understand. Another key thing, which I would love if you'd go over, is how sort of the breakpoints work on the income that you earn and how much of that counts towards Social Security benefit.
That's a really good question, Kerry. What we're talking about here is that the first amounts of money that you're paying into Social Security, they're broken down into different brackets. Each one of those brackets actually counts more towards the Social Security that you'll be receiving later on when you start to take Social Security. you want to go over to brackets, Carrie?
Yeah, sure. So basically, the way that it works is the first roughly $1,100 that you earn, 90% of that money is calculated towards your Social Security benefit. Then the next level is when you get up to roughly 6,700 and change in annual income, then 32% of what you've earned is calculated towards your Social Security benefit. From 6,700-ish and change on up to the cap for this year, that's 160,200. 15% is calculated towards your Social Security benefit. So basically what that translates to is if you have somebody who's earning $50,000 a year, and let's say for the whole 35 years adjusted for inflation, they earned 50,000 or the equivalent of $50,000 per year for 35 years. And you have somebody who, same thing, but for $100,000 a year for 35 years adjusted for inflation. Automatically, you would think the guy with $100,000 would get double the benefit of the guy with $50,000. But it doesn't quite work that way because that first 1,100 is 90% counts, 6,700, 32% counts. So for sure, the guy with $50,000 is going to get less than the guy with $100,000, but it's not that much less. And that's something that's important to understand. It's kind of like the reverse of how taxes work, where the lower your income, the less you're taxed. Social Security benefit, the way it works is the lower your income, the more of that money counts towards your benefit that you're going to receive when you start taking that benefit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It was essentially built as a program to help the public, right? And it was built to go on top of people's pensions.
Right.
So a lot of the times when you were paying into the system, it was a single household, like single income household, and that single income household was paying into the system. So the first, likely, I would say the first, $30,000 to $50,000 that you pay into it is what most of your benefit is based off of, in my experience. I've looked at hundreds and hundreds of different Social Security statements, and a lot of the time, individuals that were making about like $80,000 all the way up to that $160,000, that last jump of money, it's not as big as you would think.
Yeah, it doesn't have as much weight
Exactly.
in the calculation of benefits,
Mhm.
right? Cool. Okay, so now let's get into these 4 simple ways that you can increase your Social Security benefit. So one of the primary ways to increase your benefit is, it's kind of bad news for some of us, but it's working for 35 years, right? That's what your benefit's based off of, is the top 35 years of income you've had. So if you've only worked for, let's say, 30 years, and now you want to retire or whatever, you only have 30 years of income history, then what happens is the Social Security Administration, when they calculate your benefit, they just add 5 years of zeros because they're going to do it off 35 years. So if you only work 20 years, they're going to add 15 years of zeros, right? So one of the things that you can do to increase your Social Security benefit is, even while you're, when you retire, we're not saying you have to stick with some stressful job that consumes all your time like you want to retire, which makes total sense. But maybe work enough to at least get that $6,700 in employment income for the year, because that's what weighs the most towards your Social Security benefit. And at least you're not getting a big fat zero for that year, right? That's probably the very first thing, is at least, try to get your 35 years and have at least 6,700 in income or the equivalent, depending on the year, to get some benefit from that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And then, kind of like an interesting thing to note is that once you start Social Security and you're over what we call the full retirement age, you can continue to work and start filling in some of those zeros, which I think is a great strategy, because I have a lot of clients that they might retire and then they get a little bored, so they become like a secretary or an assistant or something else like that, and they start filling in those zeros, and that
Sure.
can actually quite boost up your Social Security a lot, especially if you've only have about 15 to 20 years of working and paying into the Social Security system. What's another way that somebody can increase their Social Security, Carrie?
One thing that most people don't realize is that if you're married, or if you're divorced, but you were married for at least 10 years, you can actually qualify for your spouse's benefit. So it gets a little complicated, but essentially the way it works is, let's say you're approaching the age where you want to take Social Security, and you can get from Social Security Administration your statement of your projected benefits for yourself. And let's say it's $500 a month, but you're married, or you were divorced, but you were married for 10 plus years. You can also get a copy of your spouse or ex-spouse's benefits. And you would qualify for basically 50% of their benefit. So maybe 50% of your spouse's benefit, because they were the one working most of the time, is $1,000 a month. Well, you can look at that and go, should I take my $500 a month, or should I take my spouse's 50%, which is $1,000 a month? Now, it doesn't affect how much they receive. This is just your benefit. And it's one of the things that you can do to kind of sort of game the system is taking a look at taking spouse's benefit versus your own benefit if it's going to be more from them, right?
I want to add a couple of things onto that.
Sure.
So definitely you have the spousal benefit. So one of the funny things I used to tease people about was that, say your benefit is $800, right? Mm-hmm. And I go out to a bar and I'm single. I'm a single old lady, right? What happens is that if you're married for at least 1 year, that entitles you to your new spouse's benefit. So say your old spouse, right, and you're divorced and you guys were together for more than 10 years, what his benefit, half of his benefit at his full retirement age was $1,100, right? So he was getting $2,200. Now you're divorced. If you meet a new person and you're married for at least 1 year and they're getting like $3,200, you could bump up yours to $1,600. I'm not telling you to get married, but it's always something to look at to kind of like add into the mix of a way that you might be able to bring up your Social Security.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Nice. And what would be another way that you could increase your Social Security benefit? What's one of the other ways?
So another way that you can increase your Social Security benefit is that you just wait and you don't take the Social Security benefit. Now, what do I mean by that? There's going to be two things that we actually have to understand to kind of wrap our minds around how to grow this benefit. The first thing that you have to understand is called the FRA, or the full retirement age. And if you're not taking Social Security right now, your full retirement age is going to be 67. Second thing that we have to understand is called the PIA, which is the primary insurance amount. The primary insurance amount is what you're eligible at your full retirement age, okay? So every month that you wait past your full retirement age, your Social Security is actually going to grow month by month, all the way until age 70. Now, every single year past 67, it grows by about 8%, and that's flat interest. And that's one of the ways that you can definitely wait and kind of let your Social Security grow.
Now, what about after age 70? Because you said until age 70, right? So
That's right.
If you wait till you're 71 or 75, does it continue to grow from that point?
It actually doesn't. So 70
okay.
is going to be the cutoff age. And if you're 71 and you're not taking Social Security, you should start taking Social Security.
Okay, and then another question. What if because I know you become eligible, generally speaking, for Social Security benefits at 62 and a half years old, mm-hmm. right? So I get this question a lot from my clients, and obviously I know this answer, but for the sake of people watching this video, so sometimes people are like, cool, I'm 62 and a half. I want to take Social Security right now. But there is a difference between that benefit now versus at full retirement age, which is 67 for most people, unless I think you were born before 1960, at which point it's 66 or something like that. So like, why would somebody want to wait until they're 67 versus like 62 and a half or 63?
There's a lot of reasons why you'd want to wait until 67. Obviously, you have to consider all the options and meet with a financial professional to discuss them, but I'm going to kind of give you a couple of them just to think with. First is that if you start Social Security at 62, you've got a huge penalty that happens on that. You're not going to be able to make much more income than, I would say, about $18,000 a year without having your Social Security reduced. So what it really kind of works out to is about every $2 that you make over this, I would say around $18,000 to $19,000, your Social Security is going to be reduced by $1. So if you start taking Social Security at like 62 and you're making $60,000 a year, good luck. You're probably not going to see a paycheck until you reach to age 67.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But also the benefit is way less at 62 and a half
Oh, yeah.
compared to full retirement age.
32% less.
32%.
Right? About 32% less, as well as it's going to stay less for the rest of your life. Unless you're, putting in a couple more years and things like that, or
Okay.
switch to an ex-spouse's benefit, which we can talk about later.
Got it. So basically, if you want to increase your Social Security benefit, one of the ways you could do that is waiting until full retirement age, or maybe even further, 68, 69, 70 years old, at which point your benefit is as big as it's going to be, right? Okay, that makes sense. Well, another way to increase your Social Security benefits is similar to the spousal benefit, where you're eligible for 50% of your spouse or ex-spouse's Social Security benefit. There's also something called the survivor's benefit, which not many people understand this. And it's a little bit sad to talk about, but let's say you were married for 30 years and then your partner passes away, right? You're now a widow or a widower. And your partner was the primary income earner. And a lot of people don't realize that you can actually take your deceased partner's Social Security benefit and you can get 100% of their benefit. So for example, if you're 65 years old and your husband or wife or whatever passes away, you become eligible to 100% of their benefit, which sometimes can be more than maybe your benefit, especially if your partner was the one who was the primary income earner for the household, right? And that's something that's important to know. It's another way that you can potentially increase your benefit. And I believe that also applies to maybe an ex-spouse that you had, that you were married to for at least 10 years. Maybe you've divorced, but then they pass away. You can also, in certain circumstances, take their survivor's benefit as well. And I know there are various strategies of how to do that, like taking it until you reach your full, et cetera. Can you explain what some of those could be, or like how
Absolutely.
you could use that to increase your benefit?
So the first thing you have to look at regarding this is that you're going to be required to call the Social Security office and probably wait on hold for a little while. So that's the first one. But we're going to talk about this strategy, and you have to know that. When you call the Social Security office, what you do ask the Social Security office is what you're entitled to based off of this deceased spouse's income. You can't really ask about their income, but you can ask about what you're entitled to. And you'll probably need to have a little bit of information like their Social Security number, as well as like any marriage certificates or things like that. But the first part of this is that when you're 60 is actually when you're entitled to your widow's benefit. So some people, what they do is if they're kind of retired, they're not working anymore, they can actually collect their widow's benefit at 60 and not collect their benefit. Now, because they're not collecting their benefit and they're not eligible for their benefit at 62, what occurs is that their benefit stays kind of set aside and it will continue to grow every single year from 62 all the way to 70. And once you get to 70, it might be more than your survivor benefit. And at that point in time, you can switch. And I've seen that happen, and I've helped a couple of people do that.
Cool. Okay, so like you could take your survivor's benefit while you're waiting for your personal Social Security benefit to like mature, to reach that, full retirement age, and then also get the extra like 8% simple, et cetera, until age 70. And also it could simply be that the survivor benefit's just going to be more than your benefit even at age 70. And so you would just stick with that one. But that's another one. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So then JJ, I have a question for you. So obviously I know it's dependent upon the individual, their personal circumstances, at what point they want to retire, their finances, their goals, et cetera, and it's really personal to each person. But as like a blanket statement, when do you think is sort of the best time for somebody to take Social Security benefits?
Okay, This is my controversial
The
opinion.
controversial
The controversial
topic.
opinion. This is
Yeah.
my controversial opinion. And I'm willing to argue with other advisors regarding this.
Okay.
Absolutely. My opinion, I'm not saying that you should take this, but these are what I think about. My opinion is 68 is probably the best age to take Social Security.
And why is that?
If you're not doing like some type of complicated strategy where you're like switching off of spousal benefits and things like that. Okay. Now, 68, this is why I've done hundreds of break-even analyses. And a break-even analysis is, say that you start Social Security at 62, right? And you're getting $1,000 a month at 62.
Okay.
So you're collecting, let's say, $12,000 in the first year, and then another, let's make this all simple. Then you collect another $12,000 the next year. You're 64, and you kind of like keep doing that. So by the time you're like 67, you've collected, let's just make it super easy math, you've collected about $70,000, right?
Okay.
Now that's going to continue, and at a certain point in time, you're just going to see this line kind of go up of the amount of money that you collect. Now, let's say you are comparing how much money you're going to get from Social Security, and that's what most people are going to do. And they start taking Social Security at 67. Now, you didn't get that 70,000 for the last what? 4 years?
Yeah,
5 years, right? So now you're going to start collecting, but you're getting, let's say, $1,500 a month. Okay. So that extra $500 a month is sooner or later going to catch up with the total amount that you collect. Right.
Right. So at which point do they break even? Like,
exactly.
You could start earlier, you get less per month, but you're earning for those years.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start at versus starting at 67 where you earn more. Like, at which point do those lines cross?
Break even, right?
Got it.
And we're going to kind of like show a break even graph for you guys to look at.
Okay.
Now, what I've looked at, I mean, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these, just going through Social Security strategies with clients. What I've found is that there's generally a break-even point of around between like 82 and 84.
Years old.
Years old.
Okay.
As of like, if I take Social Security at age 67 versus taking it at age 70, right? Like there's like this break-even of like 82, 83, 84 years old. Somewhere around there, generally, depending on the life expectancy of the client. Okay. So here's the thing. Now, if you wait all the way till 70, right? And your break even is like 83, 84, you get to have an extra $300 to $400 a month generally at 84 years old. For me personally, I rather start collecting 2 years early, start getting that money while I'm alive, while I'm doing well, while I have energy, while I can go out with family, while I can go do travel and all of those other things, and enjoy and front load my retirement as much as I can in those 2 years and do as much as I possibly can, because most of the time, the individuals that I've talked to, by the time they're like 85, 86, that extra $300, $400 per month doesn't really matter to them. It kind of just like filters down to the grandkids. So that's my kind of like controversial, but if you're just trying to figure it out when you're collecting, I tend to go towards like 68, because by the time you're 84, 85, if you've waited until 70, it's only like $200, $300 more a month.
Okay, so basically, like, if from my understanding, of course, if you wait till you're 70, you're gonna get more income.
Oh yeah,
and it will break even in your 80s. But basically, the point you're making is like, hey, sure, it's an extra couple $100 a month, maybe
when you're 85,
in your 80s, but like, wouldn't you rather have extra money when you're younger?
Yeah.
By 2 years, but still you're more fit to travel and enjoy your golden years than maybe if you're 85, 86.
That's correct.
Okay, I got it. So that's more of like on the human level, as opposed to some great like mathematical financial reason. It's more of like, just, hey, you've worked hard, like enjoy your life a little bit. Like,
yeah, while you
right?
can, right?
Okay, that's like, cool. I don't think that's very controversial. I mean, obviously, if you're considering taking your Social Security benefit and you're not sure when you should do that, absolutely consult a financial professional and get like tailored advice to your situation. But I think, as just a generally speaking, I tend to go like, hey, wait at least until full retirement age if possible, because why start at 62 and a half and get 32% less, and have these other cons, which we can get into in another video. But yeah, the whole debate of like 67 versus 70, it's kind of subject to the person. But that makes sense on 68. I like that.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I go with
Okay.
the 68. There's like one other one. Sometimes people want to like psych themselves out, right? And they're like, I'm going to start Social Security early, then I'm going to take that money and then I'm going to invest it in this thing. Just make sure you're working with a financial advisor, looking at all of the numbers.
Yeah.
And, gonna shoot my controversial opinion. I think 68 is probably the best for the client. Might not be the best for the pocketbook, but that's usually what I
Okay, cool. I like that. Great. Well, yeah, so those are the 4 simple ways to increase your Social Security benefit. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to answer. You can leave a comment down below and we'll get back to you for sure. But just to recap on what those are, it's working for the full 35 years, even if it's that minimal amount of 6,700-ish, right? There's waiting to take your benefit until full retirement age or 68 or 70, or as long as you can. Just don't wait after 70. There's not really a reason to. There's taking a look at spousal benefit, right? 50% of the primary insurance amount on your spouse or ex-spouse. And then there's also survivor benefits. If unfortunately you're a widow or widower, right? That is an option that you can take and sort of use to game the system, kind of. It's a legitimate way to do it, right? And that's another strategy. And then beyond that, as far as when's the best time to take your benefit, of course, consult a professional, financial advisor, financial planner who can help work with you to understand your situation. And for anybody who's interested in talking to us or looking at getting some help from us regarding your Social Security benefits or just your finances in general, feel free to go to our website, reach out to us anytime. We're happy to do a complimentary consultation and help you out to our best of our ability. And thank you for watching our video.